Boy.
Savannah, if I could ask a question, are there any other tapes of her voice wherein you hear her affect and if she's normally that detached and sounding so young?
We haven't heard them yet, but I do think we're going to hear videotaped or see videotaped interviews that the psychiatrist did with her after the crime, and we'll be able to compare it. But yes, it was not just what she said, but how she said it. She was so calm, and she sounded young and like a little girl, and the whole 911 tape lasted about 40 minutes, and that demeanor was the same throughout, and she gave detailed directions to her home and detailed descriptions of her property. So it will be something that the jurors will have to look at.
Bobby Mims, criminal defense attorney, joining us there at the courthouse with Savannah, has practiced in the jurisdiction and in fact in front of this judge. Bobby, welcome, and question to you. Won't it hurt the defense that she was so calm and rational on the phone, could give directions to her home, told the 911 operator that she had killed her sons, that maybe she shouldn't have killed, wasn't supposed to kill the third one? She seemed to have her wits about her during this 911 call.
Well, you would think so. I mean, that's the thing, that's a process they're going to have to confront. You know, I think it'll play out later on in the trial as to, you know, whether or not her calmness and her demeanor on that 911 tape makes any difference. I'm not a psychological expert, only a, you know, we're a trial lawyer, but I think you're going to see later on in the trial, you know, a little more evidence of maybe why that is when they call these experts.
Yeah, you're right, Bobby, because someone doesn't have to appear as a raving lunatic. She doesn't have to be tearing her clothes and dancing around the room with a lampshade on her head to be insane or to be mentally disturbed. However, her wherewithal, the fact that she knew she should call 911 and report these deaths, report that she had done something wrong, could attack the defense that she didn't know right from wrong. When we come back, you're going to hear the testimony of police that found these little bodies. Stay with us.
Condition of the infant, what was that?
He had massive head trauma. His head was swollen and misshapen, a dark color, and I had difficulty believing he was still alive from the shape of his head.
There you are hearing one of the cops describing what he found at the scene. We are in a Texas courtroom bringing you the latest in the case against a mom, a 39-year-old mom who is on trial for the stoning deaths of two of her little children. Deanna Laney is also charged with the near death of a third child. That child apparently is legally blind and will walk with a walker for the rest of its life. She says God told her to kill her children. With us at the courthouse, Court TV's Savannah Guthrie. Savannah, during the trial, what kind of demeanor is the defendant, Deanna Laney, emoting?
She is very upset. She is visibly upset. She's been upset pretty much from the moment we came in here this morning, crying. She doesn't seem to be looking at a lot of the evidence, frankly, and it is very gruesome photos of the crime scene and of the boys, of the clothes. Sometimes she's just crying with tears streaming down her face. Other times she appears to be racked with sobs. I can't hear her because I'm in the back of the courtroom, but I can imagine she is making some noise. And it's interesting to me that the jurors, every time I look at her and I see that, I look to see if the jurors are looking, and I haven't caught them looking over at her, but she is obviously very upset.
Well, I can guarantee you, and I'll go to my two defense attorneys in just a moment, but with her sitting there sobbing, racking, her body jerking with sobs, and the jury not even looking at her, that is not a good sign for the defense. Another thing they'll have to contend with is the testimony of police, deputies that found these little children dead. Take a listen to Deputy Rathburn.
How did she appear when you found her?
She was wearing pajamas. She was also talking on a cell phone. She was just kind of seemed like she was walking around in a small circle.
Okay. Did she have any shoes on?
No.
Did you notice any blood on her clothing or on her body?
I did.
Now proceed.
Walking around in small circles, no shoes. Okay, Savannah, that is not normal behavior. To have gone outside, to have called cops, to to be walking around in your PJs when cops get there in a circle. That's not normal, but I don't know if that alone is going to rise to insanity. That's a heck of a defense in Texas, Savannah.
Well, apparently Texas has a pretty tough insanity statutes. Most defense lawyers I've talked to here think so, because not only does the defense have to prove that she had a mental disease or defect, they have to prove that she did not know her conduct was wrong. And also, the jurors are not permitted to hear about what will happen to the defendant if they are to acquit by reason of insanity. And a lot of defense lawyers feel like jurors will be reluctant to come back with an acquittal by reason of insanity because they don't know what will happen, and maybe they don't feel it's just for her to walk right out the courthouse door, and they don't know what will happen to her.
Bobby Mims is with us, a local defense attorney in the Texas jurisdiction. Bobby, take a look at this graphic display in court today by the prosecution.
For it to get on her back.
Correct.
How did the blood appear to be like it just drip from the rock this way, or if it's cast off, was it cast off as the rock was falling?
There you see the prosecution in a graphic display with the particular rock allegedly used by the 39-year-old mom. Was there any way, Bobby Mims, that the defense could have stopped the use of this rock in court? That had to make an impression on the jury. Ouch.
Well, I think all this is going to make an impression on the jury, Nancy, but what the real heart of the soul of the defense of this is this insanity defense. There's been some comments that the defense is not cross-examining or letting the state lead. Well, I don't think that there's much reason for them to object at this point in time. Their heart and soul is going to be presenting this case. It's my understanding that the state's own evidence with these psychiatrists is going to come in, and they're going to be used by the defense. So, as we all know, insanity is a tough defense, especially in Texas, but as far as the use of the rock and all that, I don't know that he could have stopped it, and whether or not he wanted to.
Yeah, in that jurisdiction, not only do you have to show the defendant did not know right from wrong at the time of the incident, not today at the time of trial, but at the time of the stonings, but there's a second prong, right, Bobby?
That's exactly right, and you know, that's part of the danger of the defense. But in this particular case, as I understand it, I'm obviously only familiar with it from the outside, they don't have any other choice. I mean, I think both sides are proceeding with this case the only way they can legally, and I think they're doing, at least at this point in time, what I would be doing if I were trying the case.
You know, Michael Molfetta, once the defense claims insanity or self-defense, that's what we call an affirmative defense under the law. Explain.
Well, it then puts the burden on the defense to put forward this evidence, and ultimately, if they meet their threshold, the burden then shifts back to the prosecution to prove that that's not the case. So there's actually a shifting of burden to the defense and then back to the prosecution ultimately. What's interesting in this case, Nancy, I wanted to point out, is the defense, besides the sheer emotional impact of this case, has other things to contend with. This woman knew what time it was when she killed her children. There's this pillowcase which seems odd, and then very, very critical is the fact that she says on the 911 tape, I did something wrong in killing or hurting the one child. That, to me, evidences somebody who's thinking, that's pragmatic, and it's a problem for the defense.
Michael, I think you really hit the nail on the head. Very quickly to Diane Diamond in for Catherine today. Diane? Okay, I've missed Diane. I want you to stay tuned for Diane, however. She's coming up next. Filling in for Catherine Cryer today. In lieu of going to Diane, I want to thank you, Savannah, for being with us, Bobby Mims, criminal defense attorney, and of course, Michael Molfetta. Most of all, I want to thank you for watching the trial with me.